Look, everyone on the street is saying that the Steam Deck is going to be this new Switch killer, when everyone knows that the 2DS and 3DS, that's the Switch killer, baby. That's the Switch killer right here. But in a hypothetical world where the 3DS, 2DS aren't a Switch killer, let's talk about if the Steam Deck is really as big of a competitor as people online are trying to make it out to be. Let's talk about it. Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. It's Ty here, and if this is your first video, welcome. I'm really close to 1,000 subscribers. I know I'm getting it right out of the way. If you like what you see from here on out, feel free to hit that subscribe button. Help me get to 1,000 subscribers. I'd really appreciate it. That out of the way, the easy shill out of the way. I do want to kind of talk about my thoughts on this whole debate on what the Steam Deck is. What is the purpose of the Steam Deck? And like every time the Steam Deck is brought up online, I would see a lot of people talk about how it's a Switch killer, or the Switch is just better, or this or that. And it's like, I get the comparisons, you know, right off the bat, the comparisons make sense. The Switch is kind of, I mean, it's not the first thing to put two controllers on the side and a screen in the middle, but it definitely is pretty much the most well known. I mean, you could argue things like the PSP and Vita, and I mean, realistically, the Game Boy Advance, you know, the whole holding it like this and with a screen in front of you did that first. But now with the Switch out, everyone else is doing the idea. There's a big period of time when the Switch came out that everyone was doing that idea. And it's a good idea. You know, the Switch did good. It makes sense that people want a slice of that pie. But, you know, I think people are kind of missing something. The Steam Deck doesn't need to compete. It's not trying to really compete. This thing is being made a lot, obviously, but it's not being made, to my knowledge, it's at the moment at least, it's not being made to be on shelves. It's being made pretty much to order. Like right now, it's, you had to like pre-order essentially. You had to like get in a queue to eventually get your own invite to buy one. So, and like it's coming out in waves. I really doubt, I mean, I'm sure they'll eventually hit some storefronts. I'm sure like Best Buy or Micro Center somewhere online will sell them eventually, but it's nothing like PlayStation's or Xbox's or even Nintendo's launches. Like this is something that's being purely made for the want of certain people. So from the get-go, I don't really see it trying to compete. If it was trying to compete, the marketing would be much more insane. Valve, Steam, whatever you want to call them, they have money. They could definitely compete if they wanted to, but realistically, they don't need to. They already have a huge grasp on the PC market, so why? I don't know. It'll claim itself in time, really, if they want to advance the Steam Deck even further. But so right out the bat, I don't even see them trying to compete. I don't know why everything's got to be a competition, but let's say they were trying to compete. A big thing about competition is that everyone always mentions competition like breeds like innovation. You know, people try to one-up each other, and that's true. You know, this kind of leads into my point of why both of these systems definitely could exist in a market. And it's the same reason why Nintendo systems can always exist in a market. It's because Nintendo makes really great games. I mean, yes, Xbox and PlayStation, and Steam all put out, well, Valve used to put out some really great exclusives, but seriously though, like they all put out some really great exclusives, but they also got third-party support really helping carrying their backs. And for Valve, Steam, whatever, on their end, it's pretty much what carries that company. The third-party support is pretty much what it is now. Valve doesn't really make many games nowadays. I know they make one every like 18 millennia, guys. Calm down. But in a realistic sense, they do not make as many games as they used to. But Nintendo, on the other hand, their third-party support has, I mean, it's, you know, every once in a while Nintendo will get a third-party exclusive. things like Bayonetta and some Sonic games on the Wii and Wii U era. But in all seriousness, you know, Nintendo gets one every once in a while, and you know, Astral Chain, people love that game. Things like Bravely Default, people love that. Nintendo has some really good third-party exclusives, but they are most well known for their first parties. And I mean, yeah, you can get into the realm of like the Pokemon, technically third party, and I mean, the realistic sense, yes, but for how much, like, I mean, I guess I don't know what to call them, because like Nintendo's kind of in the pockets of those two companies and franchises. Like, technically don't own the characters, but they kind of own the characters in a way. So I mean, yeah, obviously Nintendo at the end of the day has Pokemon, Kirby, big third parties. I don't really know what you call those. Like, Nintendo's really the only one that has these type of things. I don't really know what to call them, but you know, even if we just stick with things like Mario and Zelda, I mean, and Metroid, those three alone, like, those are big names for them, and they don't really end up needing the third parties. Like, yeah, it helps, but Nintendo, ever since 64, in my opinion, Nintendo 64, Nintendo has relied way less on third-party support. You know, I'd say during the NES and SNES, third parties, basically anything that wasn't being made by Nintendo, which I know that's what third party means, but I mean, like, there was so much not being made by Nintendo, but that's just because the market wasn't as big. Nintendo was up the times with the graphics and everything. You know, after they stuck around another generation with cartridges on 64 and the Sony PlayStation and discs, you know, they lost things like Final Fantasy, a big one. After 6 games, you lose that. That's tough. Final Fantasy VII was a huge third party for the Sony PlayStation, and I mean, come on, it's Final Fantasy VII we're talking about here. That's a pretty big hitter. It's something that a lot of people associate with the PlayStation. Metal Gear Solid, another big PlayStation. Like a lot of Konami products in general. Symphony of the Night. Sure, there's other ones that I'm just not thinking of. Obviously, Nintendo and 64 still got Konami support, but if you were going to sit me down, have me either play Bomberman 64 or Symphony of the Night, gee, I wonder which one I'm going to play. Now, you're probably like, why are you talking about PlayStation in a Nintendo versus Steam type of video? I'll bring it back in a second here. What I'm getting at here is that if you look at Nintendo for the past couple console cycles, their first parties have carried them. They don't need to worry about third-party support. And honestly, they don't really get much of it. Yes, they get some of it, but like comparatively to PlayStation, Steam, and Xbox, they don't get half as much as they do. I mean, if you count all the shovelware on the eShop, then, you know, maybe they actually double the support, but Nintendo, it's a well-known thing now that Nintendo can carry their own with their IPs, their first-party exclusives, their Pokemons, their Kirbys, whatever. They don't need to be like Steam. They don't need to be like Xbox. They don't need to be like PlayStation, where they get the massive third-party support. They literally do not need that. And it's really interesting to me, and I don't really know how else to explain how this has happened. I have no clue. They just make high-quality games. That's at the end of the day, that's realistically what it is. I mean, the only, like, a lot of people point, like, I mean, there's a big Scott the Woz thing, the Dark Age of Nintendo, around the time when they're doing Metroid Prime Federation Force and Mario Tennis Ultra Smash, Chibi Row, Ziplash, Animal Crossing, Amiibo Festival. There's a reason why Wii U games were like, I've never seen Nintendo games, just specifically Nintendo games, be like buy one, get one. I remember at Toys R Us, there was like buy one, get ones on Wii U games. That's crazy. That is crazy. That is unlike heard of. Like, Nintendo at one point was hurting because they weren't doing that great. And that's because their first party games were not up to a lot of people's standards. That's part of it. Backtracking a bit, the Steam Deck. Now let's go on the other side. The Steam Deck is pretty much a third-party machine. Sure, you obviously can play the Valve games, but this thing is like insane for emulation. It can, I believe it can run Dolphin. I'm sure people will get it to run crazier things eventually. But let's just stop it at GameCube for what it could emulate properly. I mean, yeah, that's one thing people are definitely going to be using it for. It's like, oh, you can play Nintendo games on there, no point in the other thing. It's like, I mean, yeah, but where are you going to play the Switch game? And you can say people will get that running on there, and it's like, okay, but that's just going to be a minor dent, or nothing will come of that to Nintendo. I mean, at the end of the day, I don't know how else to explain it to people that these things aren't competing. They have just two different... People will buy a Switch to play the Switch games. Most people buying a Switch probably aren't going to be buying it to play something that's not going to come to it, like that will be on Steam. Steam will have so many more exclusive titles, but they won't be Nintendo titles. Nintendo is just a name that means something to people. It's a household name that has a lot of standards, and it's just the competition between the two. They're hitting just totally different markets. People see similar product, but not realize where the product's going to people. Sure, obviously there's going to be people that have both, and it's, to me, both needs. Third-party PC gaming on the go, Switch games, Nintendo games, Mario Odyssey, Breath of the Wild 2, Kitchen Cooking Mama. Oh no, that's a PlayStation game now. 2. Dang, my bad, guys. No, but all seriousness, I hope you got something out of this ramble. This was just something I've been thinking about. I guess to conclude, stop this argument. I mean, I'm just tired of hearing about it. It doesn't make sense to me why people see... Like, I get the similarities in the product. That's where it ends. That's realistically where it ends. Like, people are going to be using their Steam Deck to be playing their Steam library, emulating stuff. People on the Switch are going to be probably emulating stuff and playing Switch games. I have not met anybody who's like, I'm a dedicated third-party supporter on the Switch. No. No. I've really met barely any people that buy a lot of Switch exclusive games. No offense to you if you not Switch exclusive games that play non-exclusive games on their Switch, like games that they could get on Steam or get on Xbox or get on PlayStation, because most people have a Switch and something else, or have a Switch and stick with Nintendo's titles. That's all I gotta say, though. If you have any thoughts, leave them in the comments below. Don't yell at me. I cry easily. No. But in seriousness, thank you again for making this little ramble. It always means a lot to me that people check this out, take the time to hear what some guy in the Fortnite chair has something to say about some random video game thing that will be irrelevant. But seriously, take it easy, everyone, and until next time, let's debate if the Neo Geo Pocket is actually the Steam Deck killer.